Good evening, Dr. Kaul. Welcome to have you on this chat. And for the audience, I just want to introduce that Dr. Kaul is one of the leading oncologists, and he has been associated with some of the leading hospitals in India as well as globally. And currently, he also is associated with Ebix Cash Group as the managing director of the Ebix City initiative. Now, Dr. Kaul, as you are well aware that 4th February is the day for spreading the cancer awareness, because this is considered to be one of the most dreaded disease, and it is so prevalent in most of the parts of the world, including India. So we thought that we should take your time and understand more about this and create this particular talk to use the awareness in the audience, right? So डॉक्टर साहब, फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन मैं आपसे पूछना चाहता था that people talk about cancer nowadays very commonly. मतलब आप if you see हर फैमिली में कोई ना कोई ऐसा है जो कैंसर से कभी ना कभी impacted रहा है. So what are the key 3-4 typical causes of cancer? Have the world been able to discover that? What are the things which are proven to cause cancer, and people should be aware of them and have a precaution as far as those kind of situations or environment if they are living in?
First of all, thank you for a glowing introduction. I'm not really sure whether I am worth it, but thank you for having me today for this conversation, Sachin. And like you said, for the larger Ebix family, it's really interesting that we are now talking health. And I'm really happy that not only we are talking health, we are talking something that I've spent possibly large number of years of my life involved with, trying to understand it. I can't say that I've understood most of it because it's still a continuously evolving process. But yes, my mind and my heart is there completely. So thank you. Again, as far as cancer is concerned, yes, it is a leading cause of death, possibly on a global scale. If I'm not wrong, it's possibly the second leading cause of death. And I think occasionally in some parts of the world, probably heart disease and hypertension beats it. But I would still say that that in the non-communicable spectrum, which means diseases that are not communicable or transmissible from one to the other, like bacterial illnesses and viral illnesses, cancer would be possibly something that you cannot ignore. And if you ignore it even now, as on today, when you know what the figures are, how alarming the figures are, we are almost heading into the next millennium, which is going to be an epidemic of cancer. You know what an epidemic is? Because I think for people who don't understand medical terminology, COVID unfortunately taught us what a pandemic and an epidemic. It just means large numbers of people suffering from it across the globe. And obviously, like you mentioned, we in India, and not just India, I'm talking about Greater India. I don't mean Akhand Bharat, but I mean Greater India in terms of functionality, because the countries around India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, they more or less share the same epidemiology and demographic profile, and even economically. And economics is important. As we keep talking to each other, you'll realize why it's important as far as the disease is concerned. And I say, as from the Indian perspective, we are there. We are at least on the track. We just need to re-energize, redouble our efforts. And what better a day than the World Cancer Day to rededicate and pledge ourselves to this gigantic effort. So here I am. And please ask me the questions. The first question, if I remember correctly, was about what are the main causes. As long as everybody knows that there are two components of cancer, two main types of cancer as far as happening or suffering from it is concerned. One is hereditary. only 10 to 15% of cancers, all cancers, when I say cancer, I'm talking about generalized, most of them, have a component called as hereditary cancer, which means it is transmitted through the genetic information from one generation to the other. The message is in your genes. It's there. It may not become clinically evident in one age, one sort of age group in one generation, but it may uncover itself and become clinically relevant in the next one. But yet the message is there. It's in the DNA. It's written. The codes of that are written. I'm happy to tell you at the same time that we are now able to decipher that. You know the Human Genome Atlas, what it does? The National Cancer, it is mapping our genes, and it is doing it in a very effective manner so that with each year we develop the abilities to foretell what cancers one will have in future. What are the chances of any person with this message developing that cancer in his or her lifetime? Now that's really, really great news. That's a great highway to go on, and we're already embarking on it. So genetic cancer, hereditary cancer, which can be transmitted from what is just 10 to 15%. The rest is what we call as sporadic cancer. Most of the times when you and me hear about people in larger communities around us, or our relatives or extended networks, whether they be relatives or friends developing from cancer, and like you know, in our country, you said 1 in 9, but actually the true figure is 1 in 8. 1 in 8 Indians will, at some point of time, stand a very strong chance of catching or developing one of these cancers in their lifetime. So that is a very, very, very strong figure. And it looks okay, small number to talk about, but when you deal with families which suffer, whose people, loved ones suffer from this, then you realize how impactful it is in the lives of that family, that individual, that community. Our most efficient line of defense against infections or afflictions like cancer. The body's own mechanisms, which we are endowed with, out of which the lymph nodes and the lymphatic system, the T cells, the B cells, these are all medical terms, but to put it very simply, they are important soldiers. They're important soldiers which guard the frontiers of our body against intrusions like infection, bacterial illnesses, viral illnesses, and so also cancer. So therefore, what is the state of that system in your body, in my body, in any individual's body is important. And that is affected directly by our lifestyle choices. The food we eat, particularly when our bodies were growing up, did we have a wholesome food? Did we have enough nutrients? Have we been eating junk food, the quick, do it quick diets across the world? How healthy is our food? And with that food, are we expending and are we energizing? Are we trying to exercise our bodies and keep them fit and not develop chunks of weight, which then makes us obese, which is the second bad factor as far as developing the cancer is concerned. So the food we eat, the weight we carry, which is very, very, very important, is the tobacco chewing that happens in our part of the world. The smoke, the tobacco, as you like, whether you smoke it or you use tobacco-related substances like pan para, keni, and all that kind of stuff that goes on in this part of the world, responsible for a huge number of cancers. Tobacco and almost 1/3 of these cancers are linked to tobacco. And if I give you, and not just cancers, even heart disease and respiratory tract and other things, but cancer more so. And when I talk about cancer, right from the ingress into our body for the nasal passages, the systems, the oral cavity, the tongue, the gums, we have a huge, India is known as the granary of oral cancer. Huge numbers here, and thanks to what we're talking about, huge numbers of oral cancers, Oropharynx, the part of the throat behind the oral cavity. Nasopharynx, the part of the throat which is behind the nares, just at the back, the sinuses. Nasopharynx. Larynx, what produces the voice box, along with its vocal cords. They're all linked to it. Esophagus, the food pipe, the upper part of the food pipe, is the upper third of the esophagus. Stomach cancer, kidney cancers, to tobacco usage and smoke, drinking, particularly on empty stomachs, bad food choices, charring of food. People who do barbecues and create coal on the surface of the chunks of meat, then they devour, whether it's chicken and all, is bad. Pickling, pickles that we use are bad, particularly for gastrointestinal cancers. So, lifestyle. And people talk a lot about stress. Does stress cause cancer? Very common question that I have been asked throughout my practicing life. Does that? I mean, all I can tell you, scientifically speaking, is that stress complicates matters. If your mind and you're stressed, you have a tendency of not entertaining subtle complaints that early cancers send out, to ignore them. That is why in this part of the world, when we detect our cancers, they usually full-bodied, grown, already spread ones. That is one of our big problems. So, like I said, that it's about the choice, the food, the lifestyle choices that they make, and then of course the world we live in, the larger world. That's where public health, that's where governments, that's where communities come in. What is the kind of air that the environment, external environment that we are providing our citizens? Is it full of carbonaceous? Is it full of tar? Is it full of all the carcinogens that are floating? Because it's not just one thing that creates a cancer. It's always all of them get together and they connive. And they connive for years. They help each other. And we call them co-carcinogens because they collaborate with each other in a malicious way. Collaboration is good, but if it's for a larger good and you're trying to mend and create, it's good. But if you're collaborating with each other to destroy, then that's what they do. Cancer destroys. It destroys tissues, whether it comes as an ulcer or it comes as a lump. It destroys and eats into the surrounding tissues, the surrounding organs. That's what constitutes spread of this disease, doesn't it? And then it is not satisfied with just spreading next door. It tends to send these microscopic cells in the blood circulation all over the body and lodges at different spots, constituting what we call as secondary disease. Right. It is a disease that you find in the liver, the disease that you find in the lungs, the disease that you find in the brain, disease that you find in the bones, virtually everywhere. That has metabolism. Any part of our body that has active metabolism and a blood supply, the cancers can reach. So virtually no part is exempt except the maybe the nails. Rest is all can get a cancer or spread from the primary cancer at any point of time. So, but it goes far. That is how a simple tumor, a benign tumor, a tumor that doesn't spread to tissues around it, that doesn't spread far and wide, that doesn't have a tendency of keep coming back at anywhere in the body at different periods of time in your life. That's what benign tumors do. That's how a cancer neoplast, that we call it neoplasia. That's the term the doctors tend to use. New growth, new blood vessels that sprout, new tissues that come up. And cancer is something that does not listen to the regulatory controls, inbuilt regulatory controls of the body. You know that the basic constituent of our body is a cell. A cell is active. It grows, it breathes, it has metabolism in it. And it replicates, it multiplies. But once it multiplies and replicates, the controlling mechanism, the auto control